Welcome to Up to the Minute. Good to see you with us this morning. It's hashtag finally Friday. Wow. Crazy week, hasn't it? It's weekend's going to be crazier. It's going to get cold as can be over the weekend, and then even colder on Monday and Tuesday. So make sure you bundle up. Sit back, though, for the next half hour. We got a great show lined up for you. Brittany Pacheco is joining us this morning. She is fresh out from the frozen tundra of outside, and Brittany apparently does not like cold weather. Brittany?
I don't mind the cold weather, truthfully. It's because I get to, wear layers and bundle up. It's fine. It's the cold plus the wet plus the wind. It's not a good combination for me because, like I said before, I've got Raynaud's syndrome, so my fingertips go really numb and it's quite painful. So I could never live in a colder climate than what we're experiencing right now.
Do you wear gloves, or does that not work for you?
It's a hit or miss, but I do have a rechargeable hand warmer that does help quite a bit. So all of you out there who suffer from the same syndrome as I do, that's just a game changer right there. But enough about me and the cold. Let's get into Up to the Minute. Before we do so, I do want to remind everyone to take a moment just to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you can be the first to find out the latest upload from us. And last but not least, to all of our audience members, we do appreciate you being here, but we'd like to grow our audience, and we need your help in doing so. So click that share button at the bottom of this podcast so it shows up on your personal news feed. And Todd, let's get into it.
All right, so we've got some couple of special guests for you today. Of course, we're joined by Marcy Melvin. She is the Senior Director of Health, Equity, and Strategy, the Hackett Center for Mental Health. Good morning to you, Marcy. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Todd. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your show this morning.
Well, thank you for being here. We're going to talk about a little mental health awareness coming up in the show. If you would, please stand by. But right now, we want to introduce one of our students, Yvan Olivia, HCC filmmaking student. Yvan, good morning to you.
Morning, Todd. It's nice to be on here with y'all. Appreciate it.
Good to have you with us. I'm going to ask you first off, what made you be a film student? Have you always been a student of film before you started with HCC? And what brought you here to HCC?
I wouldn't say that I was always a student of film. I think that my lead up into wanting to study filmmaking actually stemmed from shooting film photography. And I think that translation or that movement from the medium of film to filmmaking itself was actually spurred on by a good friend of mine. We would just watch movies all the time, and that kind of spurred the interest even further, and I got involved with the HCC program not long after meeting them, actually. So it's been a nice ride so far.
How long have you been with HCC, and what are your plans once you get finished with HCC?
That is a very good question, considering the environment.
Yeah, right. It's pretty challenging.
Right, exactly. So I've been at HCC, I want to say now, for a little more than a year and a half, taking my time with the program. What my plans are for afterwards is a mystery to myself included. I have plans and dreams that I would like to see fulfilled in the future. And of course, I'd love to make my way onto some sets as well, whether they be documentary or narrative feature filmmaking, but I'm down for anything at this point.
Well, one thing I've noticed during this shutdown is, of course, the big tentpole films either aren't being released or maybe put on hold. And it's given a number of independent films a chance to make it into the mainstream movie theaters because they're looking for content. Have you noticed that yourself?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen kind of the shift in how films make it to the marketplace as well. I mean, there's been a huge uptick in the films that are submitted to streaming services as well online, whether they be through things like Netflix or Hulu, or through more independent streaming services like Mubi or art house collections like Criterion. So I think it's kind of widening how an audience gets to interact with independent filmmakers, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But yeah, unfortunately, theaters are suffering that financial impact, and as somebody who adores going to theaters, it's a bit of a sad moment for me as well.
It sure is. You know, a lot of theaters suffering right now, along with a lot of businesses. Yvonne, if I ask you to stand by, because we're going to talk about one of your projects coming up. We've got Julye Newlin, who is one of our filmmaking instructors here at HCC. Good to see you this morning, Julye.
Good to be here, Todd. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for being here. I want to ask you, we were just talking with Yvonne about the fact that COVID has seemed to allow a lot of independent films, not mainstream films that you normally wouldn't see, into bigger theaters, because those main theaters are looking for content right now. I want to ask you, with COVID, how has that affected your program? Because for a while you had to do everything online. I imagine most of your courses are taught online right now as well. How are your students dealing with that?
Well, I think it's always a challenge anytime you start seeing a huge shift like this that happens at any sort of academic institution that's worked primarily in a modality that teaches kinesthetically, which is what filmmaking is. Filmmaking is no different in many cases than the challenges that HCC faces with automotive or any sort of engagement that is a nursing engagement where you really need to be hands-on with people. Filmmaking has all of those challenges, right? So you have the combination of the technical as well as the interaction that needs to happen with performers, with talent. And all of that happens in close proximity. As a member of IATSE and working in the professional world still, we have safety officers that are now on set. There's been a lot of productivity that's been slowed down in this process. And of course, in some cases, some sets shut down completely because of situations where someone gets ill. And then of course we can no longer proceed. But from a teaching standpoint, it's difficult to, I think, meet the challenges for every student who would love to be in a face-to-face situation, who prefers the engagement that happens on a personal level. So we try really hard to meet those needs, trying to engage students both visually and auditorially to help to fill that gap. But it's not, for some, everything that they would want for it to be. So the shift is one that we've tried to make. For the filmmaking department in general, though, very few of our classes were online prior to COVID. Wow. Ones that were history classes, film classes that were film history classes, things like that could be online. But for the majority of the classes, lighting, cinematography, working on set as a director, all of those were engagements that we did face-to-face. And so it was a big shift for the department.
You know, I imagine one of the highlights of being, working in performing arts and in filmmaking is being able to show your projects to your peers. And you guys face some challenges for that with going to this new modality. Maybe you can tell us about the assignments that you assign the students and how you were able to get them, such as Yvonne, to show their work.
Well, and the best part of having a student like Yvonne is that she always rises to the challenge. And so in this particular case, what we had to do is we had to rethink a lot of things. And this has been, I think most instructors will be honest about this who've been in these types of engagements. It's a trial and error situation. We figure out something, and then by the time the next semester rolls around, we go, oh, okay, well, that didn't work out so well, so maybe we need to try this. But the shoots that were the most difficult for the students, one of them was the stop motion assignment that we did for TV field production. And that assignment came to me. It was an assignment that I had taught before at other schools. And I thought about it. I thought, well, the practicality of it is that in a scenario like this, you can do it in a small space. And it's something that anyone can do. It's just a matter of how much do you plan in advance to execute it well. And so that was where that assignment came from. But a lot of the other ones that were in cinematography have been with me since I started teaching about 6-7 years ago.
Yvonne, I want to talk about your film. It's called Remembrance. It's a project, a short film about heartbreak. So maybe you can tell us about that.
Yeah, the film actually started off as, obviously an assignment. We were told to try to demonstrate an intangible concept. And so I'm a little bit obsessed with the idea of memory and dreams and kind of how those things have very real impacts on our lived experiences in the world. And so because it was the middle of COVID, I was living with somebody, my best friend actually, and they assisted me greatly throughout the process. And I basically built this prompt around like, well, imagine I'm the person who passes in this instance. You know, what would your story be like? And so we just kind of tackled a script together and came up with this story.
And you've also provided us with some frames from another project. I think we've got Mel 1, Pepino, and Tommy, along with one other. Maybe you can kind of talk about those.
Yeah, sure. Those are actually just, those are shots from film photography that I still practice. Mel is actually the same individual who is in the short film that we'll be showing. They're my best friend. They helped with the production and writing and the setting up of the film itself. They're actually the individual who spurred me to get really involved in filmmaking as well. So I'm deeply grateful to them. But yeah, that was shot on, if it's the blue tinted one, it's shot on Kodak Ektachrome that expired in 1998. Wow. But I wanted to test the capacity of the film to continue to receive and express light. So I took it upon myself to shoot all these rolls and see what the response of the film would be. Other shots are Pepino, which is shot on the same film stock, which I also developed in-house as well, and some kind of contraption that I built in my sink. But I think these are really beautiful because it shows that film is uniquely different from digital photography as well. And that as the film ages, the expression of light on it shifts as well. So there are color shifts, there are changes in the tint itself. The density of the film as well changes, so you'll get a lighter or a thinner or a denser actual emulsion. So I was just kind of practicing with that. Tommy actually is a photo of an individual who I organized with in a houseless organizing coalition in Houston. And so this individual is actually really dear to me because they're very expressive, they're very genuine and kind. And so upon our meeting this group of, or this community of unhoused peoples, Tommy has always been a very sweet person who is caring and reaches out to us as well in our work. And so it was just a beautiful moment that we had together at a distribution we were doing. And one of my friends caught him in a good posture, and I was asking him if I could take a photo, and lo and behold, we got a good photo.
Yvan and Julye, I want to ask you both this, and I've been asking several on our Film Fridays to answer this question. You know, nowadays we're showing films in theaters and streaming them online, and people, and many times, are watching them not only on their TV, but on their computers and much smaller screens like their cell phones. Being filmmakers, does that fact that people are going to be watching your content on a smaller device, does that affect the filmmaking process? And I'll start with you, Yvan. We've only got a couple of minutes left, but maybe you can tell us your thoughts on that.
I am a diehard fan of the big screen in the theater. So to me, there is a little bit of detraction from the experience itself, but I think for independent filmmakers that are really trying to get their stories out there, we'll take it. We really want our content to be seen. And so if that leads to an opportunity to maybe land on a big screen or to be screened at a local theater or a film club like Aurora Picture Show here in Houston, I think that's a wonderful thing. And so the technology is basically just a stepping stone to hopefully a greater opportunity in the future.
And Julye, what's your take on that?
From a technical standpoint, you have a great question. Absolutely. It changes how we produce the media. If you look at something like Citizen Kane on your cell phone, I doubt quite seriously that you get the experience that you did in the theater. However, it is the nature of the beast that all things evolve, and we're at that place. My biggest concern, of course, in the future is that the brick and mortar of theater will leave us, which was a place for me to escape as a child. It's how I fell in love with movies. And so I hope that it stays with us, but I'm not sure. It may pass the same way as the love that Yvan has for shooting on film itself. It may pass. If it does, that's fine. The content that we produce today, just as Yvonne said, we have to get it out there some kind of way. And I think that today, all of this has given everyone a voice. And that's the value of what we have at this point, is that everyone can watch everything on any kind of device that they have. And there's a sincere communications beauty in that.
Julye Newlin, instructor for our audio recording, filmmaking, and music business programs here at HCC Northwest. Thank you for being here. And Yvonne Olivia, one of our students, we are proud of you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Todd.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And if you're interested in enrolling in the film program, make sure you do so. Our second semester starts on Tuesday, February the 16th, and you can enroll today at hccs.edu/now. All right, we're going to move on and talk about some mental health. Marcy Melvin, the Senior Director of the Health Equity Strategy, the Hackett Center for Mental Health, is with us this morning. Good morning again, Marcy. How are you?
Wonderful, Todd. Like Brittany, I'm also very cold.
It is a chilly one this morning, but I keep hearing it's going to get a lot worse. We could be getting down to the teens. They're saying it could be the coldest weather we've had in Houston in decades.
That makes me want to cry a little bit.
It makes us all sad inside a bit, doesn't it? We would like to focus on mental health issues, but not only our college students, but also students of color as well. You say that college students, no matter their age or stage in life, can experience unique stressors and situations with mental health, especially during this pandemic. Maybe you can give us a few tips there.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to refer back to something that Yvonne said. When you had asked her, what were her future plans, there was a hesitancy in this unknown, right? And I feel like, for considering that we're in the middle of a pandemic, that heightens that uncertainty and that unknown that many college students feel. It's a transitional age, right? So anywhere between 18 and 26, 27, that's a transitional age, Todd, where they're still going through brain development. The brain is still functioning, still developing, and they have all of these life stressors that they're now responsible for in a way that they may not have been responsible for in the past. And some of those safety nets that they may or may not have had are slowly beginning to either disappear or they're positioned in a very different way. So it's a very stressful time. You have the demands of school, and then oftentimes there's the demands of work. And when we're talking about a community college, oftentimes we're talking about older students. So these are students who may be working full-time, taking classes, and they may have families and children that they're caring for as well.
And then you throw in the fact that many of our students, their hours have been cut because of COVID. Maybe they've lost their job because of COVID. They're trying to find funding for college and for their family. You throw all those in there, and it seems like the stressors become, insurmountable.
No, you're absolutely correct. And so one of the things that, I've frequently talked about is how, as a result of this pandemic, we're all kind of being exposed to a very unique type of complex trauma. And I frame trauma in the sense of whenever we're under extraordinary stress for prolonged periods of time, and the coping mechanisms and the coping skills that we have, they aren't able to help us manage this prolonged stress, then that puts us at greater risk of that prolonged stress kind of evolving and turning into trauma. So understanding that complexity, I think, is really important. We're using words like stress, we're using words like trauma and mental health. For most people, they're going to understand when we're talking about symptoms. They're going to understand when we're talking about difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep, or feeling exhausted and not being able to focus no matter how much sleep you get. It may be increased appetite, where it's like you just find yourself munching all the time, or decreased appetite, where you're not eating and maybe you're potentially losing weight. So thinking about it in terms of symptoms, I think will resonate a lot more with people, or increased irritability.
And one of the troubling things you hear of during this pandemic is that alcohol sales have, quadrupled at this point. I think they're up by something, last I heard, around 80% So a lot of people are turning to unhealthy habits to deal with the stress. And, that could certainly happen with our students as well.
Absolutely. The CDC reports increased rates of alcohol use and abuse, as well as substance use and abuse, right? So going back to what I said before, when we're having these periods of prolonged stress and you don't have the coping strategies in your toolbox, then you may turn to other strategies, whether that's excess use of alcohol or drugs or other means.
We've talked about symptoms and how you can identify those, but let's talk about how this affects our students of color. This past summer, we saw some emotional, some disturbing images from across this country, all focusing on racial injustice and awareness of that. How does this affect our students differently than it would affect our students of color than it would affect many other students?
Absolutely. So what you're talking about, Todd, we call intersectionality, right? That relationship between kind of something that the general population may experience as it kind of also coincides with something that a unique group may experience. So everything that I described before that your college students are going through, if you take and add a layer of the, students of color on top of that, then we're talking about additional racial trauma, right? We're talking about kind of this lifelong exposure to these, biases that they may have experienced throughout their entire life. And so that stress compounded with the additional stress of kind of being in college and what that looks like can magnify that experience and magnify those symptoms for those students of color. I also have to point out that as we have watched a lot of these horrific events unfold on television in front of us, that becomes extremely detrimental to students of color. There have been research studies that have pointed out that watching someone who looks like you be murdered over and over again on TV has negative impacts on your mental health. When I say negative impacts, we're talking about increased rates of anxiety and depression and ability to just be able to manage and focus some days.
If you're not noticing this yourself, hopefully people are plugging in online and they're communicating with their friends, maybe going to Zoom meetings with their friends. If you're noticing one of your friends experiencing problems, what type of behaviors should they be demonstrating? How are you going to notice those trigger points, I guess?
That's a great question. So I'm going to kind of plug our OK to Say website and campaign. So with the Hackett Center, OK to Say is our public awareness campaign, and it's twofold. One is if you're struggling with issues, we want you to know that it's okay to say that you're struggling. It's okay to say that my current life events are so heavy that it's really hard for me to manage and I'm not functioning as effectively as I have in the past. Right? So it's okay to say, and I want to encourage people to go to the website to look at all of the resources that we have available. Mm-hmm. The second piece of that campaign is speak up and share hope. And that's for those of us who may have loved ones or friends who we may be concerned about. Maybe they're more irritable than usual. Maybe they're withdrawn or they're distant, or there's something about them that just doesn't seem like they're themselves, right? Then we want people to speak up and share hope and to let them know, I see you. And there's something about you that doesn't seem okay, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. And for those of us who may not know what to say, we may have loved ones or family or friends that we're concerned about and we're just not sure what to say. Visit our OK to Say website, because we have a whole section on those lead-in speaking points and how do you reach out to people that you love and care about.
Marcy Melvin, we appreciate you being here and giving us some great tips. We want to let everybody know we're going to have the OK to Say, oktosay.org. We'll have that website and the link to the social media post for the show. Also, for our students, faculty, and staff. Students, anytime you need help, go to our website and just click on counseling or Google counseling. We have counselors available for you all the time. You can meet with them virtually. So that's available for you. And for our faculty and staff, we have an EAP program, which you can get to through our website as well. Marcy Melvin, we appreciate you being here today. Thank you for joining us with some great tips.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Brittany. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you, too. All right, we're going to move on to Brittany. Certainly some very, very important tips that Marcy was able to share with us.
Absolutely. And a lot of it hit home for me because, Todd, you know, I've gone through some personal trauma within the last few years of my life, and I had to seek, assistance, and that was difficult, but it's made a world of difference, just for my own mental and physical well-being, as well as the relationships around me, because of the things that Marcy was saying, of loved ones noticing there's something off. You seem more irritable, you seem down, and that once again struck very close to home. It's a daily struggle, and I am just forever grateful for the people who have supported myself. There is a great support system out there, be it immediate family, be it coworkers, whomever. I mean, there is support out there. There are absolutely resources out there, as we just heard from Marcy. So I encourage everyone to just take a moment to reflect and seek that help if you need it.
Absolutely. And it's very important to realize there's really no more stigma around mental health awareness, mental illness. You can't do a do-over if you're no longer here with us, and you really need to seek out help when you feel those issues or problems approaching, And as mentioned, counseling services are available for our students, faculty, and staff. Go to our website and you can find those. All right, Brittany, I want to skip on down because we're limited on time, but I want to skip down to the virtual coffee breaks because we've got one coming up Tuesday, which is very important.
We do. So it's grab a cup of coffee with coworkers and Janet May, our Chief Human Resources Officer, to continue chatting and adapting to our current reality. Now, they're going to be joined by Christine Monpoint, the HCC United Student Council President. So this is going to be great to hear from her. This is next Tuesday, February 16th at 11 a.m. Check your HCCS emails for more info and just search coffee breaks.
And we've got some updated information. The VPA Filmmaking Learning Series with Alfred Cervantes. The Houston Film Commission will overview film commissions, locations, crews, equipment, incentives, and grants. Alfred is over that, and so he will be here Wednesday, February 17th from noon to 2 p.m. It's a free event. Students, if you're into filmmaking, this is your Houston connection. Check out what he has to say. Email Michael Cohn for more information, and we'll put his email address in the website or in the social media post for the show. Black History Gala is coming up, Brittany.
It's officially Black History Month and the first ever virtual Black History Gala. Knowledge is power, and it's slated for Thursday, February 25th. The HCC Foundation recognizes that 2020 was a challenging year, but it's looking ahead to a great year for the Black History Committee. And we'll be offering more info on this year's scholarship recipient next Thursday. So stay tuned. We did hear from Camberell Marshall yesterday, who's going to be the keynote speaker. If you haven't checked that out, be sure to, go to YouTube, check that out. Hey, subscribe. And if you're interested in donating to the Black History Gala, go to hccsfoundation.org/2021BHC. We'll put that link in the post.
I want to skip down to registration because that's very important. February the 16th, that's Tuesday. Our second semester starts on February 16th. We've got several modalities to learn from. The two main ones you want to keep in mind: online anytime and online on a schedule. Lab-based courses, they are meeting in person for the workforce instructions. The main thing, Brittany, is to get there and register today.
Absolutely. You want to be able to grab that seat because we've obviously downsized our classrooms to adhere to social distancing regulations. And any questions about Flex Campus, that's going to be postponed until a later date, and we'll keep you posted as soon as we hear something. But as Todd said, we're starting second start February 16th. That's next Tuesday after the holiday. We will be off, which is President's Day. So don't expect to see up to the minute or any of us working because we need a break. But go register for Second Start. Go to hccs.edu/now.
I already had this conversation with you. All of us are off. You're having to work Monday.
Sure.
Okay. All
We'll
right.
go with that.
Okay. So we're starting up the show again on Tuesday. I think, is Frank back on Tuesday or he's not?
Frank is on vacation.
Still on vacation. All right. Lucky guy. All right. Tuesday, we've got our culinary guest chef will be from the Curious Tomball Eatery, taking the country by storm. Tejas chocolate and barbecue. Two things that are gifts from God. Chocolate and barbecue. You can't go wrong with them. It may sound weird, but it works very well. Chef owner Scott Moore will be here to talk about being a master chocolatier and also having some pretty darn good barbecue as well. We'll talk about that. And he's going to show us how to make pork butt tacos. Yep. So join us on Tuesday for that. Also, we've got another special guest.
I'm thinking Willy Wonka, come with me and you'll see.
I don't remember pork butt tacos in that song.
Listen, we can adapt. It's fine.
Okay.
We're also going to visit with an HCC jewel that doesn't get as much attention as it should, and that's our VAST Academy. Sandra Pierce, director of its employment program, will be here to talk about getting those students out there working. So that's going to be a great show. Chocolate, barbecue, and talking about our VAST Academy program.
All that and more coming up Tuesday morning on Up to the Minute. Have a great weekend, folks. Bundle up. It's going to be very, very cold. I won't say bitterly because they overuse that on the news, but very, very cold this weekend. Make sure you stay safe, mask up if you go out, and most importantly, have a great weekend. We'll see you Tuesday morning live at 10 a.m.